A terrorist murders your family, and your government helps pay the killer a salary. Unthinkable, right? Not for Israel. For years, the Palestinian Authority, which governs the West Bank, has spent around 10% of its annual budget paying the salaries of prisoners in Israeli jails, many of whom are incarcerated for terrorism and security offenses. The Israeli government has known about it for years, and they've indirectly assisted it. No more, they say. The Israeli parliament will vote this week on the so-called pay-to-slay bill. Israel has long collected customs duties on goods that get sent to the Palestinian Authority, then forwards the money to the PA. The new bill would deduct from those revenues around $250 million a year, the money that the PA pays to convicted terrorists and their families. The money would instead go into a fund for terror victims. Some fear the move could cripple the Palestinians economically, as American legislation known as the Taylor Force Act would also cut off U.S. funding for the PA until they end pay to slay.
That argument has no validity whatsoever. The money that's being paid to the terrorists is being paid to terrorists. It's not being used to fund schools. It's not being used to fund welfare. It's not being used to fund health needs. It's simply being paid as an incentive to terrorism and as a reward for terrorism.
The Palestinian Authority claims it is simply taking care of the welfare of its prisoners, like any country is obligated to do. But the Israeli Defense Ministry just released a report detailing what it says is the PA's incentive structure. The Henkin couple was killed in a drive-by shooting by 4 Hamas members. The report says each will receive around $3 million by the time they turn 80. Itamar Ben-Gal was stabbed to death. His killer will get around $3.5 million. Even when a terrorist is killed, his family sees the benefit, like the murderer of Rabbi Raziel Shavach. There is discussion among Israeli legislators as to whether their bill should have a freezing mechanism in which withheld money would be returned to the PA if they change their policies. Would that matter?
Our understanding is that the payment of salaries to the terrorists is something that is fundamental in the Palestinian Authority. It's something which they are even willing to give up on foreign aid in order to continue. It is nonetheless a despicable practice which continues to contribute to the cycle of violence.
The bill is expected to pass its first reading this week and make it through into law this summer. The government says it's high time to spend money taking care of terror victims instead of perpetrators. Mike Wagenheim, I-24 News.